Jalen Waddle, Allen Robinson, Zeke Elliott, Gabe Davis, Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Breece Hall, Justin Herbert, Juju Smith-Schuster, Lamar Jackson, and Deontay Johnson. So this one, it's kind of like you start the round with one real positive in Jalen Waddle, who absolutely flew. And then you've got Allen Robinson, who just weighed everything back down and was really awful. But there were some good players in this round in terms of advance rate and in terms of fantasy points over expected. Again, this was a good round. You could definitely build a winning roster by getting the picks right here. And just Jalen Waddle, we'll just start with him. He was a wide receiver 7 in half PPR, second in EPA per game, 6th in receiving yards, and led all wide receivers in average yards after the catch over expected. He felt like somebody that there was a real discount on, because anybody who did believe in the Dolphins offense was just immediately pushing it all to Tyreek Hill, who looked set to eat all the work. Did you envisage this kind of world where we could see both of them be really successful?
Yes and no. I believe my take before the season was that one or the other would get there, and I would rather choose Tyreek Hill than Jalen Waddle. Both obviously were still successful in the end, but at least we know that the targets got honed down completely. Like the next closest, whenever Tua was under center, in targets to both Hill and Waddle was Trent Sherfield, and he had a 10% target share. Like it wasn't enough to even matter. Mike Gesicki also we're expecting to leave now and sign elsewhere, so maybe a concerted target tree, not even a tree, a concerted stump is what we're looking at yet again in 2023, which just makes him and Tyreek and Waddle both valuable picks again.
Okay, and then one player who I'm really excited about for 2023 best ball, Breece Hall. He was the RB8 in points per game, 5.8 yards per carry, led all RBs with a 4.6 ADOT as well. He's currently going as the RB9 in 2023 best ball ADP. And I think he's somebody that absolutely should be targeted for, if you're doing these early drafts, I think you can flip the build a bit and take a late anchor RB approach, saying, okay, well, if he was healthy, he'd probably be going in round 2 or maybe even the back end of round 1. I think none of us particularly guessed that Michael Carter would regress quite as badly as he did, but it just seems such a shame because Breece Hall looked like an absolute stud at the point where he got injured, and if it wasn't for that, he could have possibly been in the shout for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
It was also encouraging that for a regime and staff that never trusted Michael Carter to be a full-time back, even in his rookie year, Breece Hall's in his first year, in his last 5 games actually before injury, his total touches increased in every single game, and his final start before injury, he handled 76%, a season high of the team's backfield touches, 22 touches overall, and it just kept on surging and trending upwards. Like they were more than willing to make him an every down back. He just happened to get injured at that time. So I believe he will return, and they will entrust him as they have not at any point with Michael Carter.
Definitely. Okay, so Justin Herbert was a QB2 off the board. And looking back, it kind of feels a little bit strange that he got pushed ahead of the likes of Lamar Jackson, who obviously didn't have an incredible season himself. But Justin Herbert always kind of got there on efficiency and big plays and stuff like that. And unlike Josh Allen ahead of him and Lamar Jackson behind him, he didn't really have that rushing floor, and it just completely bottomed out. It's at the minute he's kind of going in that QB 6 to 8 range for 2023. And just picking up back on what you mentioned earlier, he feels like somebody that people should be aggressively targeting, because if he's healthy with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, then the Chargers could definitely bounce back in a good way. Were you drafting Justin Herbert? I know Justin Herzig was very much against Justin Herbert at his cost. Did you feel like his cost was too high to take there?
I believe I had him as my QB 4 or 5. I know outside of, I had Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts around the same range ahead of Patrick Mahomes. And then I had Herbert, Lamar, and Mahomes in that range in the next tier, I believe. Mahomes, I believe I had at the end, and he finishes the QB3. And the only quarterbacks that mattered, honestly, were Hurts, Allen, and Mahomes, because they were the only ones who averaged more than 21 points per game, and they averaged 24 each. Like, they were the ones who actually won your league. And so I was right around there, all in the same grouping. But overall, yeah, Herbert, to be drafted that high and then finishes the QB 15 in points per game, that's egregious. Like, it's not even worth touching at all. And so firing Joe Lombardi does help out the situation, I believe, ahead of 2023. Like, Herbert, he should shoulder some of the blame, but to finish with a league low in air yards per attempt for a player of his talent and class is just offensive to football. And so we'll have to see like who they bring in. Todd Monken is rumored, the Georgia OC who has NFL ties. That would be really interesting since he's an air raid schemer. But overall, yes, I'm waiting that situation out. It's not a situation where I want to be in on Herbert as a top 4 quarterback. We're just going to have to play that one by ear.
Okay, and one other player we need to talk about here. So much of the offseason was spent talking about Gabe Davis. Was he a good wide receiver or not? Was he a good pick? So he was the wide receiver 34 in PPR points per game, had 2 top 12 weeks. What kind of kept him afloat a bit with the 7 touchdowns, which was 13th most among wide receivers. He scored positive fantasy points over expected, had a positive advance rate. So when I kind of look at all that, I say, well, was Gabe Davis a good pick or was he a bad pick? I'm still not entirely sure.
I think he was a poor pick for his ADP, but, you know, before he also suffered the injury early in the year. And in that time, in his first 5 games, at least before his second injury, he had 3 top 15 finishes. You can argue Josh Allen with that MCL injury in week 9 that ruined the Bills season altogether. I'm actually guessing this offseason at some point we hear that Allen played through injury over the second half of the season because he was miserable. Like even for fantasy, the Bills offense lacked so much ceiling over the second half of the year. It was the reason why you just kept fading them with confidence and DFS streets every weekend. So overall, we'll have to see what happens, but Gabe Davis healthy, I can imagine I'll be back in on him in best ball, not redraft. We saw how much of a headache that is, but best ball, I can definitely see just swallowing that pill and moving forward.